Soho just stepped through the door and immediately attracted the attention of all the female students. Seeing that, Rookin quickly declared his claim. She affectionately called Soho my love and fed each other with lots of warmth, causing the girls to glance over with jealous eyes. After their intimate moment, Rookin began to draw and paint on Soho's face. Rookin was an ordinary high school girl with a face full of red blemishes. Later, Rookin and Soho, the handsome boy from another high school, developed feelings for each other. Rookin was always the target of teasing by the female classmates at school. She was about to confess her feelings to the handsome kitchen boy. The next day, Rookin carried a small gift box to school. While she ran to buy buns, Semi took it upon herself to open the gift box, and read aloud her confession letter clearly in front of everyone. Semi went to the cafeteria and knew that the boy chef had feelings for her. She playfully said to him, "A handsome guy like you. Don't hang out with that inferior girl Rookin anymore, you two are completely on different levels." Semi even asked the kitchen boy to meet again next time. The naive kitchen boy began to look forward to his private date with Semi, but as soon as Semi turned around, she smirked. She basically had no feelings for him at all. She just didn't want him to have any connection with Rookin. Rookin gathered all her courage to confess to the boy, her face showing awkward expression. "I'm as handsome as this. How could I possibly date an ugly duckling like you?" He even explained that he only saw Rookin being ostracized. He talked to her out of sympathy for what she had been going through. "If your appearance isn't that great, you should know your place. Standing here to confess your feelings is no better than taking a good look in the mirror." After saying that, he swept Rookin's gift box to the ground. A burst of laughter reached Semi, accompanied by a group of female classmates. It turned out they had been hiding in a nearby corner to secretly record everything. Semi was the most beautiful girl in the class. She was also the one who bullied Rookin the most on a daily basis. A classmate sitting at the desk in front of Rookin, who looked just as unattractive as she did, was also forcibly dragged by Semi into the group recording secretly. At that moment, she was holding her phone, recording Rookin's distressed appearance. Rookin couldn't understand why they treated her this way. Semi told her that it was because she was too ugly. Rookin walked away in a daze, watching her confession video that had been posted online. The comments below were filled with malicious remarks, and she despairingly broke down in tears. No one cared for her, not even her closest friend, the classmates sitting in front of her. She treated her like a joke as well. Rookin, feeling desperate, walked up to the rooftop, wanting to jump down. She saw the large screen across from her, celebrating the 18th birthday of a beloved idol who had passed away. Rookin finally gathered her thoughts. She was only 18 years old. At such a beautiful age, she still had plenty of time to experience countless different lives. Just at that moment, a boy appeared, thinking that Rookin was about to jump off the building. He quickly ran over and pulled her back, causing both of them to tumble to the ground. Rookin's glasses flew off the rooftop. Without her glasses, Rookin couldn't see anything clearly and everything appeared blurry, so she couldn't make out the boy's features in front of her. She even called him uncle. The boy didn't mind much and raised his voice to give Rookin a lesson. "Why do you always think about death when something happens? You need to stand up and fight. Doing that only causes pain and sorrow for those who care about you. It means nothing else. So no matter what happened, you must live." Rookin weakly explained that she didn't want to do anything foolish. But because her glasses had fallen off, she couldn't see the path ahead clearly. The elevator was out of order, so Rookin had no choice but to be careful. Cautiously, she used the railing to make her way down the stairs step by step. Soho walked ahead, not paying any attention to her, until Rookin accidentally tripped and fell. Soho couldn't just ignore her, so he turned back, helped her up, and carried her down the stairs. Rookin asked him why he had gone up to the rooftop. She wondered if someone else had come up there recently to do something foolish like she did. Soho didn't answer her. In fact, the idol on the large screen was his close friend. It seemed that the boy had also once jumped off the rooftop of this building in a foolish act. Today, Soho had come here to commemorate his friend. When they reached the bottom, the two of them discovered that the elevator was only temporarily out of service for maintenance, and it had been operational again for a while. Soho reluctantly let go of Rookin, thinking to himself why he should be responsible for this burden. He forcefully shoved Rookin into the taxi. Before leaving, Rookin tried to lean out and tell him that the deceased wouldn't want the living to be too heartbroken, so please try to stay strong. On the way back, Rookin suddenly remembered. She had left her last words in her mother's chat box before deciding to jump. Her mother would definitely go crazy with worry if she saw it. Rookin immediately took out her phone to call her mother, but no one answered. At that moment, Rookin's house was in chaos, with chickens flapping and dogs barking everywhere. Her father had invested money but got scammed. The debtor had chased after her to the beauty salon that her mother ran. When her mother got home, she went almost crazy. She couldn't even hear Rookin's last words. As Rookin arrived home, her mother was crying loudly. Rookin, unaware of what was happening, thought that her desire to do something foolish was what caused her mother pain. She even scolded her mother, asking why she was the only one who inherited her mother's genes. She yelled, demanding to have plastic surgery. It wasn't until her older sister and younger brother dragged her along the ground that she finally stopped. Her sister sat down, drinking and sharing in the sorrow with their mother. Her mother was preparing to sell the house to pay off the debts. A few years ago, the family had struggled to finally secure their new home. But now, they had no choice but to sell the house and return to live in their old home. The night before, Rukin had posted a status online saying she wanted to confess her feelings. Many people asked her what the outcome was. Rukin replied that she was too ugly, so no one liked her at all. In the comments, someone suggested that Rukin should learn how to make up. They even thoughtfully included a link to a makeup tutorial video. Rukin clicked on the link, realizing that this was exactly what she needed. Rukin spent the entire evening focused on learning makeup tips. The results were so disastrous that she couldn't bear to look at them. The bright blush dots on her cheeks were so exaggerated that she looked just like a 1,000-year-old ghost. She went to school and once again received mocking laughter from her classmates. Everyone clamored to take selfies with Rukin. When she got home that evening, she even scared her family, giving them a fright. Rukin had no idea where she had gone wrong. She uploaded her selfie online and asked everyone for their opinions on her makeup look. Gradually, Rukin became part of this trend. She even used her savings to buy a lot of makeup products. She kept learning patiently, unafraid of making mistakes. In the process, she accidentally shaved off half of her eyebrow. Soho went to the bookstore to look for the latest edition of a horror novel. He had known the bookstore owner for a long time. The first page of the latest issue was missing, and he didn't know who had taken it. Soho was very angry because this really impacted the reading experience. However, the owner didn't think it was a big deal. Soho ended up arguing with the owner while he was singing. Is it possible to just start singing from the second beat and skip the first one altogether? The owner didn't want to hear him lecture and agreed to order a new book for him right away. The Rukin family was preparing to move back into their old home to live. So, of course, she would have to change schools as well. This made Rukin very happy. A new school meant a fresh start. Rukin had finally learned how to do her makeup, making her look like she had been given a new lease on life. Even her parents almost didn't recognize their daughter. At the new school, Rukin was recognized by everyone as a goddess. Everyone there was amazed by her stunning beauty. Rukin and her top-ranking younger brother both transferred to study here. She accidentally ran into the boy from the rooftop that day. Rukin was captivated by the boy's handsome looks. This was truly a face of a genius. However, neither of them recognized the other. The boy's name was Soho, and he was Dukian's classmate. The teacher asked Soho to take Dukian to the classroom. Rukin followed closely behind him and accidentally bumped into Soho's back, leaving a layer of makeup powder on the back of his shirt. After returning to the classroom, Soho noticed the makeup powder on the back of his shirt. He took off his shirt and threw it directly at Dukian. It seemed that this guy's temper wasn't very good at all. The classmates seemed very welcoming of Dukian's presence. Rukin finally felt the kindness of the people around her. After becoming beautiful, her life had completely changed, except for one person, Soho. The boy, with an expressionless face, stared at Rukin. She proactively opened the book, trying to appear very friendly towards Rukin. After class, Rukin went to the bathroom to wash the jacket to return it to Soho. To her surprise, the makeup was water-resistant and couldn't be washed out at all. Soho, with a cold expression, told Dukian to just throw the jacket away. Classmates came over to comfort Dukian, saying that Soho was just like that. He was just like someone with an antisocial personality. In the class, there was another beautiful girl named Sujin. She had outstanding grades and always competed for the top spot with Soho. Rukin, Sujin, and Soa quickly became good friends. After school, they went out to eat together, played games together, and took commemorative photos together. After returning home, Soa also added her to the chat group so they could send photos to each other. In the past, no matter how hard Dukian tried, she couldn't make friends with anyone. Now she was easily able to make friends. Could it be the blessing of the two-star goddesses? Dukian signed up for an Instagram account. As soon as she posted a selfie, she received quite a few likes. Everyone was praising her as a goddess in response to the unexpected compliments. Rukin still felt a bit unfamiliar with it all. Just thinking about how her beautiful appearance was due to makeup made her feel incredibly insecure. Rukin's younger brother secretly took a photo of her without makeup and threatened her that he would post the photo online so everyone could see the true face of the goddess. Dukian could only agree to get the latest volume of the comic and some instant noodles to make a deal. Only then could she successfully buy off her younger brother, preventing him from posting that photo online. Rukin, wanting to buy the comic, quickly ran to the bookstore she often frequented. It was the same bookstore that Soho had visited earlier. Rukin loved this bookstore because it had a lot of horror novels that she enjoyed. Rukin found the latest volume of the comic on the bookshelf. Just as she was about to grab it, Soho appeared just in time, and the two of them began to compete for the same book. For a moment, unable to steady herself, Dookian fell onto Soho just like the time they were on the rooftop together. The only difference was that this time Dookian was wearing glasses, allowing her to clearly see that the person in front of her was Soho. But it just had to be at the moment when Dookian's makeup was covering her face full of pimples. But the problem was that Soho didn't recognize that the girl in front of him was actually his classmate. After all, Dookian looked like two completely different people with and without makeup. However, Soho did recognize Rookin as the girl who had contemplated doing something reckless on the rooftop. He just didn't realize that she was also the goddess of their class. Furthermore, the bookstore owner also didn't call Dookian by her real name. So, in Soho's mind, these were two completely different people. One was Rookin, the stunning classmate. The other was an ordinary girl he had met several times on the rooftop and in the bookstore. Recently, Soho often remembered the comforting words that Dookian had said to him. When they met again, he didn't understand why she had to pretend not to recognize him. After returning home, Rookin began to feel anxious. If she overslept, she might run into Soho at school the next day. He would recognize her as the girl with pimples in the comic book store. Then he would tell everyone in the class. What should she do? Today, her sister drove Dookian to school. As soon as Rookin arrived at school, she unfortunately ran into Soho right at the entrance. Her little heart raced with fear of being discovered. Fortunately, Soho didn't recognize her true face at all. Her sister sat on a bench at the school gate, ordering a cup of coffee. Across the street, there was a little girl who didn't want to go to school. An older man was trying to cheer the girl up. That man was actually Rookin's head teacher. The homeroom teacher was comforting the girl, teaching her to dance silly steps like a bride of the spirits. Dookian's sister was so captivated that she lost herself, watching the homeroom teacher as he walked into the school. She guessed that he must be the teacher. After school, Dookian went to buy makeup. Unexpectedly, she ran into me, the girl who had bullied her before, who was now with her friend from the front row. Everyone failed to recognize Dookian, but the memories of being bullied were still vividly etched in her mind. Dookian had become accustomed to running away in panic. Running out to the main road, a motorcycle suddenly appeared, heading straight for her. To avoid crashing into Dookian, the rider swerved, sending both the person and the motorcycle tumbling to the side. The guy's name was Seljun, and he was being chased by a group of bullies from behind. Seeing that the pursuers had caught up, Seljun decisively threw his helmet to Dookian. He ran for his life after a dramatic chase. In the end, Seljun was caught by them. From what the group of bullies said, it was clear that they had once been part of the same group as Seljun. But for some reason, he had betrayed the group. Just as the bullies were about to teach Seljun a lesson, the sound of police sirens blared in the distance. Realizing the situation was dire, the bullies immediately fled in a panic. In reality, there were no police, it was just Dookian who had intentionally pressed the alarm button. Dookian helped Seljun scare off the bullies but didn't bother to look around. She walked straight ahead and bumped into Seljun. Embarrassed and unable to face him, she considered running away. In her haste, she almost lost her balance and fell to the ground again. Seljun quickly grabbed Dookian's bag, pulling her into his embrace. At that moment, Dookian was completely flustered. She didn't dare turn around and just wanted to run away as fast as she could. She didn't even notice that Seljun's helmet was still in her hand. Dookian's mother was sitting watching an interview show. It was a middle-aged man with a strikingly handsome appearance. This middle-aged man was actually Soho's father. After the show ended, he went to the Taekwondo dojo to find Soho and challenge his son to a match. His father was often abroad for work, and their relationship wasn't particularly strong. During their sparring, Soho kept replaying the scene of how his mother was rushed to the hospital. When she fell seriously ill, shortly after her passing, his father had gone to bed with another woman. Soho could never forgive his cold-hearted father. Soho's father asked him if he wanted to come back and live with him, but Soho firmly refused, not wanting to have any further relationship with his father. On the weekend, Dookian went to the bookstore to return some books. Hearing that Soho usually didn't come to the bookstore on weekends, Dookian felt somewhat relieved. The owner had to step out for a bit, so he asked Dookian to help watch the store for him. Dookian found the comic book she used to borrow when she was younger. Inside, there was still a photo of a snake from that time. She tucked the snake photo into her pocket, unaware it would bring her luck. Shortly after, Soho arrived at the bookstore, causing Dookian to panic and grab a book to cover her face. Soho asked her how long she planned to keep pretending not to recognize him, clearly aware that they had met before. Just one sentence from him startled Dookian so much that she lost her balance and fell off the chair. Coincidentally, she fell right into Soho's arms, and he pushed her away. After that, the two engaged in a conversation as equals, like two friends. Dookian thought Soho had recognized her as their classmate. However, he only remembered her as the girl from that night on the rooftop. Dookian asked Soho if he had told anyone about her. Dookian intended to refer to how ugly she felt without makeup, but Soho thought she was talking about her intentions to jump off the building. Dookian begged him not to reveal her secret to anyone, and Soho quickly agreed. However, she worried he might not keep his promise. She even wrote up a contract requiring him to sign. The contract included a quote from the series Brother from Hell. Both of them had read that comic, and they seemed to get along well, especially when approaching it from the perspective of horror stories. Dookian mentioned that she still had the signature from the author's work The Mask of the Accursed. Upon hearing this, Soho's eyes lit up. He had heard about it for many years. Dookian immediately realized it was her chance. She used the signature as bait, and Soho signed the contract without hesitation. Hoping to cheer Dookian up, Soho even invited her for drinks and instant noodles. He told her that if they met at school, she definitely wouldn't treat him that way. Dookian was also questioning how she felt about it. Soho at school and at the bookstore was completely different. They sat together and finished a bowl of noodles. Soho told Dookian that today was his birthday. This was the first bowl of noodles he had on his special day. Dookian accidentally sneezed, and a strand of instant noodle shot out of her nose. She couldn't inhale or exhale properly. The scene was incredibly embarrassing. Before leaving the bookstore, Dookian promised that she would bring the signed book to Soho on Monday. Now, they shared a secret between them. Dookian considered Soho to be her friend. After returning home, Soho carefully taped the photo to his desk lamp. Soho's uniform had also been freshly washed and smelled nice and clean. Dookian put the uniform and the comic book into her bag as promised and headed to school. On the comic book, she had stuck a cute note that read, "Thank you for helping me keep my secret about my bare face." Dookian was unfortunate enough to miss the bus. The boys sitting on the bus noticed her. They shouted for the driver to stop the bus. Once Dookian got on, all the boys made way for her. Not long ago, Dookian had been squished against the window without mercy. Compared to the treatment she received today, it was truly like night and day. A man sat down next to Dookian, taking advantage of her dozing off. He lowered his phone, intending to take a sneaky photo of her. Sujin witnessed the entire scene. She boldly stepped in to stop him. The creep quickly jumped off the bus and ran away. Sujin wasn't afraid of anything. She jumped off and chased after him, even running faster than the bus. A flying backpack soared into the air and hit the back of the creep. After handing him over to the police, Sujin got back on the bus. Everyone applauded enthusiastically. Sujin's personality had always been like that. Whenever she encountered injustice, she wouldn't hesitate to be the hero and save the day. Everyone was already accustomed to her bold personality. After arriving at school, Dookian suddenly spotted a very familiar face. Seo Jun, who had dropped out a long time ago, was back at school. There was a story that circulated in the school. It said that once two men got involved, they couldn't escape from each other. It was Soho, who was always cold and aloof, and Seo Jun, who had a wild appearance. They were said to have once been good friends. Later on, it was unclear why they became bitter rivals. Seo Jun and Dookian became classmates. Seeing Dookian sitting in front of him, Seo Jun felt a sense of familiarity. It seemed like he had seen her somewhere before. Meanwhile, Dookian kept glancing at Soho, trying to flirt with a wink and offer him a drink. But all she received in return was his cold, intimidating expression. Usually, Soho didn't talk to his classmates, but occasionally he would exchange a few teasing words with Sujin. Since their families had known each other since childhood, the relationship between them wasn't too strained. As for Seo Jun, as a notorious figure at school, just hearing his name was enough to make classmates whisper in fear. It was rumored that he had a group of followers, and it wasn't that Seo Jun had dropped out, but rather that he had beaten a classmate so badly that it led to his expulsion. However, the story Seo Jun heard was that he had to drop out because of family issues. Dookian invited Soho to the rooftop and handed him the bag with his uniform and the comic book as promised. Before she could finish speaking, Soho interrupted her with a question. "You like me, don't you? Why act so familiar? Let's get back to reality." These words left Dookian speechless. She immediately realized that Soho had no idea that she was the girl from the bookstore. "Then what do you mean by recognizing me? Are you confusing me with someone else?" Soho took the bag and coldly walked away, making Dookian remember the sticky note on the comic book. Quickly, she chased after Soho and snatched the bag from him. Seeing that he had no intention of letting go, Dookian immediately thought of another tactic. She quickly exclaimed that the bag was filled with sanitary pads, which finally made Soho let go, allowing her to reclaim it. In the evening, after Dookian got home, her sister asked her if there was any teacher at her school who resembled a famous actress. Although Dookian thought about it and replied that there was no one like that, it seemed her sister and the homeroom teacher had some drama brewing. Dookian received a call from Soho. He demanded that she return the item they had agreed upon and wanted to set up a meeting immediately. Dookian was a bit taken aback. She couldn't guess who Soho was calling about. What was he referring to? Was he calling Dookian to get back his uniform now that she was all made up and looking beautiful? Or was he calling Dookian, hoping to get back the comic book instead? Dookian had to ask her younger brother to run the errand for her, but he mercilessly refused. She even considered the crazy idea of doing makeup on just half of her face. In the end, she truly had no other options left. She waited for Seo Jun's stolen helmet, then rode her bike to the meeting point with Soho. The uniform and comic book were carefully packed in the bag. Dookian opened her mouth to ask what he wanted, ready to comply immediately. After meeting Soho and handing him the comic book they had agreed upon, Dookian immediately wanted to turn and run away. But Soho called her back, offering to get her a drink. Since Dookian was wearing a helmet, she couldn't drink. The only option was to run to the bathroom under the pretense of taking off her helmet. In reality, she was going to remove her makeup. Dookian finally returned to her familiar appearance, successfully escaping without a hitch. The next day at school, after Rookin quietly returned the uniform to Soho, he hurriedly ran away. But just as he reached the door, he bumped into Seo Jun. The collision felt quite familiar, and Seo Jun suddenly recalled that night. So during gym class, Seo Jun went to find her to ask for his hat back. He scared Rookin so much that he stumbled and fell to the ground once again, tripping over his own feet. Today marks the 100-day anniversary of Sua and her boyfriend with blonde hair. The guy prepared a grand celebration with fresh flowers, balloons, and even some cheesy love confessions. A classmate lifted the cake, intending to throw it at the lovebirds. Unexpectedly, the two cleverly dodged and ended up smashing the entire birthday cake onto Rookin's face. Rookin hurriedly grabbed her makeup bag and quickly ran into the bathroom. She swore to do everything to protect her face from the mess. Seo Jun was squatting in the hallway to tie his shoelaces. Rookin couldn't slow down in time and, without hesitation, jumped onto his back. Seo Jun's precious back reluctantly became a makeshift jumping platform. In the bathroom, there were classmates everywhere. Rookin couldn't wash her face in front of everyone. Meanwhile, all the classmates were chasing after her. Rookin didn't know what to do when Soho suddenly appeared. He took off his uniform shirt, covered Rookin's head with it, and helped her leave the place. He coldly walked past where Seo Jun was standing. Soho took Rookin to another empty women's restroom. Rookin quickly washed her face and did her makeup again at a fast pace. Finally, she managed to escape from that disaster. After Rookin returned to class, the boy who had thrown the cake at her immediately apologized. The other classmates couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. It was the first time they had seen Soho actively help someone else. Hearing everyone say that, Rookin started to overthink. Why did Soho help her? Could it be that he knew she was the ugly girl from the bookstore? Rookin went to find her younger brother to analyze the situation. Her brother analyzed the situation clearly and logically, saying that Soho must have known her true identity, so he likely wanted to exploit this weakness to bully Rookin and get back at her. After Rookin left, her brother's classmates began to gather around. They wanted to ask him to help them lure Rookin in, but at that moment, her brother was serious, warning his classmates not to cause any trouble. On the other side, Rookin was completely immersed in her own doubts. She didn't focus all on the lesson, all her thoughts and energy were consumed by this matter. She even had the illusion that Soho was a vampire plotting revenge against her. Rookin saw Soho walking toward her step by step, baring his teeth as if he wanted to bite her neck. Rookin screamed loudly and quickly took off running. Soho, confused, asked her why she was avoiding him. At that moment, Rookin finally came to her senses. After school, as soon as Rookin got home, she received a call from Soho. He called her to the art store, so Rookin got up to remove her makeup and return to her original appearance. When Rookin arrived at the art store, Soho had brought some pastries for her. He mentioned that he knew a classmate who looked very much like her, hinting at something more. Soho wanted to quickly dispel the doubts in his mind. She stammered, saying that she didn't know his school. At times, she mentioned that she was attending a different school. A little later, she said she had dropped out and was preparing to move elsewhere. A few times, she almost let the truth slip, but Soho kept pressing her with questions. Rookin felt like she was on the verge of being exposed. She quickly made up an excuse and said she had to leave. But Soho called her to stop, clearly and accurately saying her name, Rookin. Rookin froze and didn't dare to move. She immediately denied it, but it was too late. It turned out that the first time Rookin handed the uniform bag to Soho, it had contained the art transfer. Soho had seen the sticky note attached to the art transfer book inside the bag. At that moment, he realized Rookin's true identity. Later, wanting to confirm, he asked a classmate for Rookin's phone number to arrange a meeting with her. She tested him by asking for the art transfer book back. Rookin took out the art transfer book she always carried with her. She then ran to the bathroom to wash her face. Soho stood outside and heard Rookin's lamenting voice. Rookin was still trying to throw back her rebuttals, claiming that she was just a close relative of Rookin. Soho stepped closer, forcing her to back up against the wall. He touched Rookin's long hair aside and pulled down her glasses. Soho confirmed that she was indeed the goddess of his class. At that moment, Rookin's mother had arrived and was looking for her. She stood at the doorway, shouting Rookin's name and calling her to come home to study. Rookin had no choice but to admit that she was the ugly girl who only looked beautiful due to her makeup. Just then, the lights suddenly went out, and Rookin seized the opportunity to escape quickly. However, her hair tie was still in Soho's hand. Soho went home to find out how to protect Rookin. Soho was about to throw away the uniform shirt that had been stained with foundation, but after thinking it over, he pulled his hand back and stuffed the shirt into the washing machine. On his wrist, he still wore the hair tie. Rookin collapsed right in front of the doorway, feeling utterly defeated. In pain, she told her mother that she wanted to drop out of school, and she told her sister that she wanted to go find a prince. But in reality, no one cared her. Her sister was busy finishing up a game. From the game, the voice of the expert echoed, "Not to be afraid, fear is the destroyer." Hearing that, Rookin felt empowered. She realized she shouldn't be afraid. The next day, Rookin did her makeup, preparing for a showdown. She was ready to confront Soho and prepare to clock him out. Upon arriving at school, Rookin called out for Soho to stop. At that moment, she had transformed into a fierce warrior. Just by looking at her, one could sense her fierce spirit and determination. Who would have thought that just moments later, she would collapse to the ground, begging. She pleaded with him to help her keep this secret. As long as he kept the secret, he could ask her to do anything. And so, Rookin became Soho's devoted follower. Soho would give Rookin orders regardless of time or place, even in the middle of a class. He sent a message to Rookin saying he was thirsty. Rookin could only run out quickly to buy a drink. Every time she completed a task, Rookin would reply with a message saying, "Task completed," Rookin replied, and Soho looked at the message on his phone, smiling unconsciously. Sujin asked him why he was smiling to himself, but Soho just looked up and didn't respond. Sujin suddenly received a message from her family, reminding her to quickly go home after school because she had to go out to eat with the teacher today. Sujin obediently replied, "Yes, okay." But her face was expressionless as she rushed into the bathroom to wash her hands frantically. It was as if she had just touched something filthy. Seo Jun chased after Rookin, insisting on getting his helmet back. When Rookin got home, she immediately started searching everywhere, only to receive the bad news that her younger brother had sold it. A fierce family battle broke out. Her mother arrived home to see the scene of her two daughters fighting loudly. Her mother immediately mentioned Zaki, referring to the person in the house as Zaki. They would cut each other's nails and toes while exchanging sweet words of affection. She thought that after school, she could finally relieve some stress, but unexpectedly, Soho sent her a message. He wanted any comic book within 10 minutes. Rookin hurried to the bookstore to find a comic, but unfortunately, the last one had already been taken by a little kid. To get the book, Rookin had to buy ice cream and pretend to be a zombie. Soho had appeared at the bookstore without her even noticing. Seeing Rookin's flailing, zombie-like antics, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. Without waiting for Rookin to notice him, Soho returned to their previous meeting spot. A moment later, Rookin hurriedly ran over to hand him the comic book. After handing him the book, she immediately ran away, not giving Soho a chance to say anything. Rookin awkwardly told Seo Jun about the story of the helmet that had been sold. She was afraid that she would get beaten up in a fight, so she wrote a letter and tucked it into Seo Jun's shirt pocket. Then she immediately turned around and ran away. The group of followers started to laugh and joke, suggesting that it must be a love letter. Seo Jun opened the letter and read through it completely. Realizing that his beloved helmet had been sold, Seo Jun clenched his fists in frustration. Rookin started a new day, now in the role of a sidekick, which meant she had to be present at all times. During lunch, she received orders to go to the classroom to retrieve the headphones. As soon as she got home, she was required to bring supplies to the bookstore. After delivering the supplies, Rookin quickly ran off, completely unaware that Soho had ordered 2 bowls of noodles. He had actually wanted to eat noodles with her. On her way as a sidekick, Rookin bumped into Seo Jun again. Because of the helmet incident, she had to humble herself and apologize to him. Sujin saw the whole scene and thought that Seo Jun was bullying Rookin again. So she ran over to confront Seo Jun, asking him why he was bullying the new girl. Meanwhile, Rookin was called up to the rooftop by Soho. The table was filled with delicious dishes. This was the food prepared by his housekeeper. Soho found it hard to swallow, but Rookin was enjoying the meal enthusiastically. She even mixed all the food together. She eagerly wanted to feed Soho a bite of the mixed rice. Soho was instantly captivated by the delicious flavors of the dish. They had struck a deal. Rookin and Soho had come to an agreement with each other. He couldn't keep treating her as a sidekick forever, so he decisively asked her to help him with something important. Then they could finally settle their grievances. Soho readily agreed, wanting Rookin to participate in the special talent competition. Rookin, with her somewhat incomplete musical skills, had no choice but to practice singing diligently, even if it meant being ridiculed by others. Before going on stage, Rookin was very nervous and went to the restroom. After returning, he discovered that none of his classmates in the waiting room were there anymore. She thought that the competition had ended, and Rookin probably didn't care much about it anymore. She opened the door and rushed straight onto the stage. The sound echoed as she began her performance. Rookin clumsily finished dancing to his song. The auditorium was extremely quiet at that moment, with LED lights illuminating the entire stage. The homeroom teacher stood on one side of the stage. It turned out that the principal and the other teachers were also there learning. Rookin had gone to the wrong room. In the middle of the school, Soho had arrived and also saw Rookin passionately performing on stage. In the evening, Soho raised his hand to look at Rookin's hair tie. Looking at the object reminded him of Rookin, and he recalled Rookin dancing on stage. Rookin's sister was always infatuated with the man who resembled Dong Yu-sung that she met at the school gate. Unconsciously, she drove to the school gate, where Rookin's homeroom teacher suddenly appeared, driving a vintage car. By chance, the tire broke down at that moment. Rookin's sister immediately took the tools out of her car and skillfully helped him change the tire. Rookin's sister learned that the man in front of her was the literature teacher of this school. The homeroom teacher bought 2 cups of coffee to express his gratitude to Rookin's sister. She found the teacher to be quite charming in everything he did, but the teacher felt that Rookin's sister was both alluring and very strong. The teacher told Rookin's sister that the vintage car he was driving was one that his father had bought in 1995, serving as a beautiful memory. Rookin's sister replied that instead of just being a memory, she hoped it would be the beginning of something new. She then suggested that the teacher invite her to dinner as a way to thank her for her help. The two exchanged phone numbers, and when they handed the phones back to each other, they got a little electric shock. Rookin's sister joked that if they got shocked like that one more time, they should go on a date. The teacher stood frozen, his expression revealing that he was definitely captivated. After June went to the hospital to visit his sick mother, his fierce demeanor from school had vanished. In front of his mother, he became warm and gentle like a soft teddy bear. Soho's father suddenly appeared at the hospital, warmly taking pictures with his fans. June coincidentally saw this scene and followed the man's footsteps with his gaze. His expression filled with unspeakable resentment. June's father went to secretly take his wife's affection to sign up for an essential oil therapy course at the cultural center. He wanted to find something to do to earn a little extra money, but ended up getting scolded by the teacher's mother in a memorable confrontation. June arrived home quite late, just as a gun was being loaded. He was called back and scolded by the teacher's mother in a fit of anger for no reason. June's mother scolded him all day, saying that he only cared about makeup and didn't focus on his studies. No matter how beautifully she applied makeup, it was useless. Her face would still look unattractive. June's mood was already not great, and hearing his mother say that only made him feel even sadder. Her younger brother had bought back the hat and returned it to her. June looked at the beautiful selfie of himself that he had posted online. Strangely, like a complete stranger, she accidentally pressed the front camera button. She was startled by the sight of her own face. Just accept it, the front camera of Samsung is already very beautiful. If it were the front camera of an iPhone, it would be like a mirror of truth. At that moment, Soho texted June, asking him to come over to deliver the comic. June braved the rain to deliver the comic to him, but on the way, he had the misfortune of getting knocked down by someone, leaving him in pain. Because of his unattractive appearance, June was laughed at by the other person. Those unpleasant memories resurfaced once again. June felt extremely sad. It wasn't easy for him to finally deliver the book to Soho. June lost his composure and wondered why Soho had the time to bother him with trivial tasks when there was nothing else going on. It wasn't any different from those who were isolating and bullying him. It wasn't easy to become beautiful in the eyes of others. After transferring schools, somehow Soho managed to get a hold over him. He spent the whole day anxious and fearful of being exposed, constantly being called back and forth. Why do they have to mock others by exploiting their weaknesses like that? Soho took off his outer jacket and draped it over him. The persistent guy told her to wait a moment, then ran out into the rain to buy some medicine nearby. Kneeling down to help Rookin tend to her knee injury, she suddenly apologized. All of this was coincidentally witnessed by Seo Jun as he passed by. Today in the cafeteria, Seo Jun calmly blocked Soho's path and said, "You harmed my friend, and yet you can still live happily like this?" With that, he directly knocked the tray of food out of Soho's hands. After that, under the attentive gaze of everyone, they all sat down next to Rookin. He invited her to eat with him, causing a buzz of conversation among everyone. Furious, Soho grabbed Seo Jun by the collar. Fortunately, the teacher arrived just in time to prevent the impending fight. The teacher gave Seo Jun a stern reprimand, while the exemplary student Soho naturally faced no consequences. Sujin brought a piece of gauze to Soho and asked him, "Is it because of your friend, the idol who passed away, that you're clashing with Seo Jun?" But Soho didn't want to answer her. Soho, Seo Jun, and the deceased friend used to be 3 close friends, but when their friend passed away, everything changed. That friend had just debuted not long ago, when news spread online about his involvement in school bullying and car theft. After everything fell apart, the last thing he said to Seo Jun was, "Soho will definitely trust me, so Soho's father will surely trust me too." Not long after, Seo Jun suddenly received the sad news about the passing of that friend. Seo Jun believed that it was Soho who had caused his friend's death, so he decided never to face Soho again. Ju Qian reluctantly became the center of attention at the school. Everyone believed that Soho and Seo Jun were clashing with each other because of Ju Qian. Classmates surrounded Ju Qian, asking her who she ultimately wanted to choose. Rukin hurriedly denied it, explaining that the relationship between them was never good to begin with, so it almost led to a fight like that. Soho walked into the comic store, reminiscing about his childhood. He went to the bookstore, reading comics while crying, recalling how Ju Qian had pretended to be a squirrel to make him laugh. That was another habit he had gotten used to from his childhood. At that moment, Ju Qian happened to walk by and saw Soho sitting there. To comfort Soho, Ju Qian improvised and shared many stories about herself, saying that if Soho was feeling down, he could talk to her. After all, Soho was the one who kept her secrets. He had helped her keep the secret about her unattractive bare face. Ju Qian reached for the comic book on the high shelf. Soho thoughtfully stopped the comics that were about to fall, worried they might hurt her. The distance was very close, and Rukin unintentionally noticed the wound on Soho's lip. Just as the atmosphere was very warm, the owner suddenly appeared. It turned out that they were standing in front of the adult comic section. The owner, with a skeptical expression, told them not to sneak a peek at the adult comics. In third grade math, Soho was about to participate in a math competition. Sujin and the bottom-ranked expert, Ju Qian, were called up to the board to answer questions, while Sujin and Soho, who consistently took first and second place, were writing diligently. Ju Qian stood at the front, her mind blank and feeling anxious. She turned to Soho for help, but he glanced at her with a blank expression, showing no sign of concern. Seo Jun laughed and seemed amused by the way Ju Qian scratched her head and fidgeted. He quickly burst into laughter, drawing the teacher's attention. So he was called up to the board to finish solving the problem for Ju Qian. After school, Ju Qian and her friends discussed signing up for a math tutoring class, as well as forming a study group. Sujin invited Soho to join the study group, but he refused. He hadn't walked far when he heard Coa mention that she had given Ju Qian's number to a guy who was her friend. He heard that the guy had already fallen in love with Ju Qian just from seeing her picture. After school, Soho got on the same bus as Ju Qian. The two sat with an empty seat between them. Soho intended to go to the comic store, but in reality, he wanted to take Ju Qian home. In 2 days, he had to participate in the math competition, so Ju Qian gave him a candy as a good luck gift. A rigid person like Soho said he didn't like sweet foods, but his hands honestly accepted the candy. At that moment, Rukin received a message from her boyfriend. As soon as he heard the name of that guy, Soho felt a bit displeased. He complained that Rukin was not focused on studying and was instead socializing with others. But what if she met a guy who was really good at math and could tutor Rukin? Wouldn't that mean she could have a boyfriend while also improving her study? Rukin began to daydream about a bright future, looking quite happy. This was the first time she was meeting another boy in person by herself. Soho felt a bit dissatisfied that her first time was not meeting him. The bus suddenly braked hard, causing Ju Qian to lean forward due to inertia. Urgently, Soho quickly reached out to support her head. Just then, another person sat down between them, leaving Soho speechless. He got off the bus and headed home. On this side, Seo Jun visited his mother at the hospital. Since she had just been discharged, she wanted to go somewhere. The two of them went to the beauty salon owned by Ju Qian's mother. The two mothers were old friends, and Ju Qian, with her bare face, was also present there. Seeing Seo Jun walk in, she quickly snatched the mask powder from her mother's hands and applied it to her face. Seo Jun saw Rukin lying down with a face mask on. Lin Thay Vo Kung Hai Hoak Ti Do. He found it quite funny and took out his phone to snap a few pictures of her. Ju Qian's mother invited Seo Jun to come over for dinner the next day. Ju Qian did not want to participate in situations like this at all. She quickly came up with an excuse, saying that she had to attend a tutoring class tomorrow. But Seo Jun quickly saw through her excuse, clearly knowing she was going to a social event. Rukin immediately accused Seo Jun of having promised his mother that he wouldn't ride his motorcycle anymore. But in reality, he secretly rode his motorcycle every day. Moreover, he rode it like the wind. The two of them took turns revealing each other's bad habits. Now the score was that Seo Jun's mother asked Rukin to keep an eye on him for her. She was not to let him ride his motorcycle anymore. Rukin reluctantly accepted this glorious mission, though she was not really pleased about it. After Soho got home, he noticed a lipstick mark on his palm. It was probably the lipstick mark that Rukin had left on him while they were on the bus. Soho slowly raised his hand to see what the lipstick smelled like. Immediately after, he felt that something was wrong. Early the next morning, Rukin got all dressed up and prepared for her date. As she opened her wardrobe, she realized that she didn't have a single suitable outfit. So she quietly sneaked into her sister's room and borrowed a dress without making a sound. Rukin arrived at the cafe where they had agreed to meet, and her boyfriend was already waiting there. Meanwhile, the math competition had also started. Rookin and his boyfriend went to watch a movie together. That boyfriend was a bit cheesy. Every time he opened his mouth, a flood of corny words would come out. But Rookin had no experience in love, so he didn't realize this was a typical script of a chat boy. After entering the theater, Rookin wondered why Soho was there. Seeing the two of them walk in, he quickly grabbed his bag of popcorn to cover his face. Soho was completely not in the mood to watch the movie. Instead, he kept his eyes fixed on the two people in front of him. Seeing the man reach out his arms to hug Rookin and then lean down to kiss her. At that moment, Soho couldn't bear any more. He jumped over several rows of seats to separate them. The ironic thing was that he had mistaken the person. The bewildered couple looked somewhat familiar. It turned out that it was Dong-ha and Da-hoa sitting next to them. A familiar sound reached Da-hoa, causing her to hurriedly run outside. After the movie, the guy said that he still had work at school, so he couldn't take Rookin home. As soon as Rookin left, he continued to meet up with another girl. They affectionately called each other my love and I love you. Soho witnessed the entire scene unfold. Before Rookin even got home, the chat boy had already sent her a message saying the same thing. Her best friend Sua even suggested that she shouldn't reply to the messages too quickly. She needed to use the strategy of softening to bind tightly. Not just Rookin, but even her sister used this tactic. After exchanging contact methods with the homeroom teacher, she spent every hour a day glued to her phone, admiring the beautiful clothes Rookin was wearing. The whole family knew that she had just come back from a date. Her mother still hoped she would focus on her studies first and not get caught up in romance. She said that when it was time to apply for college, she would introduce her to an excellent guy like Seo Jun. Rookin, a gangster like Seo Jun, wondered why he seemed so outstanding in her mother's eyes. It turned out that Seo Jun was very filial. When his mother had to undergo a kidney transplant, he was always by her side. He worked part-time to pay for his tuition and cover living expenses, even contributing to some of the medical bills. Seo Jun's father had passed away in a traffic accident, which was why his mother didn't want him to ride a motorcycle. Even Seo Jun was unaware of this. It was Ju Qian's mother who accidentally revealed everything. She insisted that Rookin must keep it a complete secret. At that moment, Rookin's sister's phone rang, but unfortunately, it was a call from an advertising company. It made her so annoyed that she couldn't help. In fact, Junwoo was also feeling very anxious about whether he should call her or not. He looked at himself in the mirror, beneath his thick, lush hair. To be honest, his eyebrows were almost completely gone, which made Junwoo feel quite insecure. Rookin shared with her sister all the fun moments from her date. She talked about whether she needed to play hot and cold. Just as Rookin remembered she needed to reply to the guy's message, she received a new message from him. He admitted that he was indeed a mess, already having a girlfriend while trying to deceive her. Rookin's sister analyzed that he might be trying to gently reject Rookin by coming up with a flimsy excuse. Right after that, her sister also received a message from Junwoo. He agreed to invite her to dinner but hadn't followed through, causing Rookin's sister to waste her time. Junwoo genuinely felt guilty, so he asked for Rookin's sister's account number to transfer the money. He wanted her to consider the money as his most sincere apology. The younger brother, sitting beside her to deal with his own sadness, chimed in with a comment. To sum up the laughable yet sad situation the two sisters faced, they had both been dumped. The next day, as soon as she arrived at school, Ju Qian managed to capture proof of Jun riding his motorcycle to school. She was ready to report the situation, but anyone could have a photo like that. Seo Jun also opened the photo of Rookin lying down with a face mask on. The scene of the two laughing and joking loudly had caught Soho's eye. Inside the classroom, Rookin had just been on a date with her boyfriend. She definitely couldn't escape the interrogation from her group of girlfriends. She was also mocked by Seo Jun, who teased her about being rejected after just their first meeting. In fact, at that moment in the movie theater, after Soho saw that guy had a girlfriend, he followed him and overheard his phone conversation in the bathroom. He said that Rookin was an innocent girl, only suitable for casual fun. Soho immediately rushed over to confront him. That's how Rookin received that message from him afterwards. Rookin couldn't stop thinking about the photo on Seo Jun's phone. She grabbed his motorcycle key and took off running. She threatened him to delete the embarrassing photo of her. Just halfway through, she was caught by Seo Jun's motorcycle. Just then, Soho appeared, and both of them grabbed one of Ju Qian's arms. Rookin was afraid that the two of them would clash once again. She quickly handed the motorcycle key back to Seo Jun, allowing the two of them to go their separate ways. As for herself, she headed toward the middle, quickly escaping the place of gossip. After school, everyone gathered to form a study group for math. Once they arrived, they realized that the person who had previously been rejecting them was also present. While working on the troublesome exercises, Rookin had a dreamy expression on her face. Even the simplest question seemed beyond her, leaving Soho feeling helpless as he had to start by saying he had to go back to the most basic concepts, just to celebrate the successful end of their first study group. Sua suggested that everyone should go to see a technician together. Soho, who had never participated in activities like this before, was reluctantly dragged along. Glancing at Ju Qian sitting next to him in a short dress, Soho picked up a cushion and placed it on her lap. After all, Rukin's legs were quite petite. Rukin stepped outside to look for the restroom and heard a beautiful voice singing from a nearby room. The singing sounded increasingly familiar, but Rukin didn't pay much attention to it. In fact, the person sitting in the room was Seo Jun. After all, Seo Jun had once dreamed of becoming an idol. Rukin accidentally spotted Seo Jun's motorcycle parked downstairs by the technician's office. She quickly gathered her courage and walked up to it. Coincidentally, Seo Jun caught her red-handed right at that moment. Rukin worried that Seo Jun would run into Soho, and if they saw each other, it would lead to another fight. So, she quickly pulled Seo Jun away and ran for it. But unfortunately, Soho had seen everything. The two ran into a narrow alley and, by chance, bumped into the group of thugs they had encountered before. Rukin grabbed Seo Jun and took off running for their lives. The group of thugs quickly chased after them. They held each other's hands tightly, running being chased by ghosts down the main street. Seeing this, Soho also joined the chase. They found a corner and hidden themselves inside. Soho ran after the group of thugs. He had no idea that Ju Qian was safe. The thugs turned to Soho and asked if he was indeed Seo Jun's friend. They even planned to steal Soho's phone to call Seo Jun and force him to come out. Soho fought against them but cannot beat them at all. He was dealt a painful blow by them. Fortunately, the police arrived just in time, allowing Soho to escape with his life. When Rukin returned, the technician and her classmates had already left. Her backpack had also been taken by everyone else. With no money left on her, she had no choice but to borrow money from Seo Jun to take the bus. But he refused to lend her any money, insisting that she should walk home. Rukin didn't know what to do. Eventually, Seo Jun's heart softened a bit. Rukin put on the helmet she had returned to him earlier. After that, the two sped off on the motorcycle heading home. Soho sat outside the comic book store. Suddenly, he spotted Seo Jun bringing Rukin back home. The two sworn enemies met and ended up having a loud argument. Rukin wanted to intervene but couldn't stop them. She could only grumble to herself that in a past life, they must have been a couple. At that moment, Rukin's sister, looking a bit disheveled, unexpectedly bumped into her. Soho and Seo Jun, one on each side, helped her sister inside the house. Rukin's sister felt nauseous and couldn't hold it in, so she ended up throwing up all over Soho. Soho froze in place, unable to react at all. Rukin quickly took off her jacket. Rukin couldn't find the words to say anything anymore. It just only took it home, washed it thoroughly, and returned it to him. The two boys stood outside the gate, and Seo Jun asked Soho if he liked Rukin. Soho countered with the same question, asking Seo Jun if he liked Rukin. Seo Jun suggested they see who could win Rukin's heart. That night, Soho lay in bed, with the hair tie and the candy Rukin had given him still sitting on the bedside shelf. Soho reminisced about the exam day before. He truly couldn't feel at ease letting Rukin date a stranger. So, he left the exam early and followed her to the movie theater. Soho's father was once a famous star in his youth. Later on, he opened a brokerage firm and became its representative. Ms. Hikyeong was an employee of this company. The anniversary of the death of his beloved idol was approaching. Among the documents he left behind was an unreleased song. The company planned to release this song, which was composed and written by the idol himself. But the person named Leo was very mysterious. No one knew who he was, and people were trying to gather information about him everywhere. A beautiful new day began as Seo Jun arrived at school. He immediately handed the motorcycle keys back to Rukin. She said to Soho, who was standing a bit far away, that, "Isn't it that you don't want me to ride the motorcycle? From today on, I will only listen to you." Rukin, feeling confused, was about to run after him. Soho pulled her back and asked her not to leave. Rukin asked me the reason why. The study genius Soho started to come up with a bunch of ridiculous reasons. Rukin and Seo Jun have sparked a fierce debate over the story of the car key. One person insisted on returning it, while the other rudely shoved it back into their hands. In front of all their classmates, Seo Jun gifted a drink to Rukin. Rukin, with a disgusted expression, revealed that she prefers strawberry-flavored drinks. During the practical session, Soho took the initiative to pull out a chair. To help Rukin see that the bottle of water in her hand was a gift from Seo Jun, Soho quickly grabbed the bottle of water and gave it to another classmate. With his other hand, he took out the strawberry-flavored drink that Rukin liked and placed it in front of her. During lunch, Seo Jun deliberately sat down next to Rukin. He always jumps in with a comment about only listening to Rukin. Rukin found it unbearable and immediately told him to listen to her. First, get lost. Second, don't open your mouth to talk to me. Seo Jun, with an expressionless face, replied to her. Aside from these two requests, he could fulfill all of Rukin's other demands. Seo Jun noticed that in Rukin's food tray, there was only a piece of fried meat left. He thought that Rookin didn't like this dish, so he naturally picked up a piece to help her finish it. Rookin then explained that this was her habit, she always saved her favorite dish to eat last. Seo Jun nodded in understanding and signaled for his subordinates to bring over 2 trays filled with fried meat. Seo Jun, feeling helpless, lowered his head and couldn't find the words to say. Rookin once again took the keys back to him. But Seo Jun refused to accept even if it was useless to retrieve it, because he had already lost his motorcycle parked in front of Rookin's house. Rookin was so startled that she accidentally spat rice all over his face. On the way to the restroom, a boy accidentally bumped into Rookin. Seo Jun immediately caught Rookin's head, and then they fell to the ground together. Everyone gathered around, causing a commotion. Such a scene, of course, could not be without the presence of the male lead. The 10th grade class was selecting candidates for the solo performance in the choir. The final candidates would be either Gao An with a normal appearance or this beautiful curly-haired girl. Because Gao Yuan's talent looked a little better, he was chosen. But this curly-haired friend wouldn't back down. Taking advantage of Gao Yuan's training moment, she slapped Gao An hard, threatened the girl to give up that stage. Rookin was drawn here by Gao Yuan's singing. She always stood outside eavesdropping, never expecting to witness this scene. Gao An did not have a particularly beautiful appearance. Rookin saw Gao Yuan's face and suddenly recalled her past. In the evening, Soho was wearing virtual reality glasses, practicing motorcycle driving techniques in his room. He didn't want to lose to Seo Jun. Soho wanted to send a message to Rookin but hesitated for half a day, unsure of what to say to her. In the end, due to carelessness, he accidentally pressed the call button, but the person who answered was a boy who seemed very familiar with Rookin. He said that Rookin was taking a shower. Just then, Rookin came back from the shower, and her mouth started chattering non-stop. She even started cursing Soho on the other end of the line, and he could hear every word clearly. At that moment, Rookin realized she was on the phone with Soho. Feeling embarrassed, she hung up and didn't dare to call back until a little while later. Soho wanted to ask her out to meet and conveniently return the uniform to him. Rookin had just finished removing her makeup, so she had no choice but to redo her makeup from scratch before going to meet him. But when they arrived at the park, the two of them didn't know what to say to each other. Every move they made revealed their awkwardness and nervousness. Rookin told Soho that his uniform still hadn't been washed properly. Then it looked like she would have to return it to him next time. After saying that, she felt embarrassed and wanted to leave. Soho was surprised to see a basketball next to him, so he casually decided to show off some of his basketball skills to Rookin. In the past, Soho had been a key member of the basketball team. Between the two of them, the tension had eased, and they were no longer too reserved with each other. While chatting and playing basketball naturally, Rookin caught the ball as she chased after it. She didn't even realize how carelessly she bumped into Soho's chest. Soho also embraced Rookin tightly. Immediately afterward, he sensed something was off and quickly let go. Her face flushed red, and she started to babble nervously. He said that he changed to a new laundry detergent and just wanted Rookin to smell it to see how it was. Coincidentally, the owner of the comic shop also passed by that location. Soho quickly ran over to hug the shop owner and asked him the same question he had just asked Rookin. Does the smell of the new laundry detergent smell good? Soho took Rookin home and noticed Seo Jun's motorcycle parked in front of her house. He proactively asked her if she wanted to take the motorcycle keys. He said that he would return it to Seo Jun on her behalf. The next day, when Rookin woke up, the motorcycle parked in front of her house was indeed nowhere to be seen. In the middle of her workout, she suddenly received some news. Soho wanted to return to the basketball team to compete. The boy wearing glasses, Hyungyu, was a member of Soho's rival team. The odds of defeating Soho were quite slim, so he had invited Seo Jun to join his team. Seo Jun suggested that he should ask Rookin for her opinion. Rookin completely disregarded Seo Jun's feelings. She bluntly stated that she didn't want to watch Seo Jun play basketball. Everyone nearby burst into laughter, causing Seo Jun to feel heartbroken. Seo Jun received a phone call asking him to come help bring his motorcycle back. He realized that his motorcycle had been towed away. Soho, from behind, threw the basketball, hitting Seo Jun on the head. After that, he deliberately bragged to him that, "The keys to your motorcycle are with me, and this curly-haired friend of yours keeps on catching." Rookin, seeing Gao An being scolded, immediately splashed water on them to defend her. The girl with green hair vaguely didn't understand why. Her senior was bothering to meddle in the affairs of the younger students. To support Gao An, Rookin lied and claimed that she was Gao Yuan's older sister. Rookin also rewarded the girl with a classic high kick. The girl almost had her nose taken off. Gao An ran straight up to the rooftop, and Rookin followed her up there. Because of the teasing and bullying, Gao An always doubted herself. Does her truly unattractive appearance really qualify her to stand on stage? To help her, Rookin began researching makeup techniques that would suit Gao An. While waiting for the bus together, Rookin shared Gao Yuan's story with Soho. She used to be just like Gao An was now. At times, her bare face was even less attractive than Gao Yuan's. Surprisingly, Soho said that her bare face was quite cute as well. Just one sentence from Soho made Rukun's little heart race wildly. The bus arrived, and Rukun hurriedly ran onto it. Her mind was filled with the words Soho had just said. For her, she posted a status asking everyone for advice. There's a guy who borrowed my laundry detergent to smell it and then hugged me, complimenting me on how beautiful I am. What does that mean? Everyone agreed that he definitely liked her. And Rukun should take the initiative to ask him out. Rukun heard the sound of love knocking at her door. She invited Soho to go watch a movie, and he indeed agreed. Rukun was so excited that she jumped up. Meanwhile, Hekyung's older sister had blocked Junwoo's path at the school gate. Last time, the teacher said he would return the money to her as a thank you. Hekyung decided to go personally to collect the money. Junwoo sincerely took out the money, ready to give it back to her. Hekyung angrily confronted Junwoo under the tree, saying she wanted to use that money to buy 2 hours of his time. Hekyung took Junwoo to a restaurant. After learning that she worked in an entertainment company, Junwoo suddenly remembered that many students aspired to become idols. He asked if her childhood dream was also related to becoming an idol. Hekyung found it strange that the man before her was unlike other men. He only asked about news in the entertainment industry. He even asked her about her initial dreams. At that moment, the server brought the wrong dish, but Junwoo didn't ask them to change it. Clearly, he couldn't eat the dish, but he still tried to finish the incorrect meal that had been served. He felt that being a server wasn't easy, so there was no need to make things difficult for them. Someone who cared for others like Junwoo especially touched her heart. Hekyung reached out to help Junwoo wipe away the food residue on the corner of his mouth. As a result, she startled him, causing him to spit out all the food, splattering it all over Hekyung's face. She wasn't angry at all. Instead, she straightforwardly told him that she wouldn't play any mind games and preferred to speak her mind directly. She said that she had been completely captivated by him, the homeroom teacher. That night, Jukin dreamed that she went outside without any makeup and was seen by all her classmates. Just as she was feeling confused, Soho suddenly rode in on a horse to rescue her. He even told her that her bare face was beautiful. As Soho turned around, Jukin suddenly saw a pig's head. She jolted awake, remembering that dreaming of a pig's head was considered good luck. Today would surely be a lucky day. Moreover, she had a movie date with Soho today. Overjoyed, Jukin ended up tumbling down the stairs. Today, her school was hosting a celebration party, so the atmosphere was lively. Rukun had chosen the movie and sent a message to Soho asking for his opinion, but he still hadn't replied. At that moment, Gao-eun approached with her unusual makeup, and people around her kept pointing and whispering. Rukun hurriedly pulled Gao-eun into a corner and began to do her makeup to make her look beautiful. Even the teacher and other classmates didn't recognize Gao-eun in this new look. As the performance began and the curtain was drawn, Gao-eun stood in the center, leaving Jukin's younger brother utterly mesmerized by her. He never expected that there would be such a beautiful girl in the choir. Could this be what they call love at first sight? Among the audience sitting below, Jun was also focused on watching the performance. Attracted the entire audience. Both Seo Jun and Rukun displayed smiles of appreciation. After the performance ended, Gao-eun ran over, excitedly thanking Jukin. Jun also approached to congratulate Gao-eun. At that moment, Jukin realized that Jun was actually Gao Yuan's older brother. Just then, Soho ran over and pulled Jukin away. The basketball game was about to start, and he handed her a plush pig hat, asking her to join Vu's team. Soho walked into the changing room, completely ignoring Jukin's presence. He seemed cold and distant, as if he had become a different person. Although they had already made plans to go watch a movie together, he suddenly changed his mind. Soho said that he was only being nice to Jukin because she seemed so pitiful. Much like how one might treat a stray cat that no one cares about. Now he found it too bothersome and didn't want to pay any more attention to Jukin. Jukin sadly left the changing room, not noticing Jun standing at the door. She walked along, crying and telling herself that she needed to face reality and stop dreaming beyond her means. Hoa jia veo bui toi hum truak, zio Jun de goi sua ho ra de doi li chia qua cheek xe. Soho told Jun that he really liked Jukin and asked him not to use her to provoke him anymore. Zio Jun van luan dao don vi sai chet qua nuoi ban la than tuong kia qua min. He reminded Soho once again that it was because of him that their friend had died. What would happen if Jukin found out about this? You were nothing but a murderer, completely unworthy of happiness. That's why Soho had become so distant with Rukun. The basketball game had started, and the score difference between the two teams was not very large. Jukin, hiding in the plush bear costume, tried to hold back her tears. He stepped in front of Jun and said, "If you have a problem, just take it out on me. Don't consider Rukun as a joke like that anymore." The school celebration was nearing its conclusion. The three performers sang a song in honor of their late idol friend. Sujin and Soho were quite close, which is how she learned about the complicated situation between the three of them. Jukin learned about the situation through Sujin's recounting. She discovered that Soho's close friend had taken his own life a year ago. That year, Soho was in a very bad state due to issues with his father. He had ignored the calls from his friend. He also didn't realize that it was his friend's last call. Not long after, Soho received the news that his friend had ended his own life. When he rushed over, his friend's body had already been covered with a white sheet and taken away, and behind the shattered phone of his friend, it was a photo of the three of them together. Soho walked over to the performing band, and upon hearing the song, he felt an immense sadness. Seeing this, Rukin approached to comfort him, but Soho pushed her away. Jukin, feeling disappointed, slowly trudged back home. Soho's uniform had been neatly dried and folded. Rukin accidentally discovered the logo on the uniform. The logo on the uniform looked somewhat familiar. She recalled her previous failed attempt to jump off the building. She had seen a similar logo on the shirt of the benefactor who had saved her. Could it be that the man at that time was Sua Ho? She once again went to that rooftop. Suddenly, she discovered Sua Ho was sitting in the corner, crying uncontrollably. He said that his friend had jumped from this very rooftop to commit suicide. Hearing that, Rukin felt heartbroken and held Sua Ho tightly. Once his emotions had calmed down, Jukian asked Sua Ho, "Why did you always hide and not tell her that you were the one who saved her back then?" Before Soho could respond, a group of people suddenly appeared on the rooftop. They shouted loudly, "Fire!" But in the end, it was just a false alarm from a fan. It turned out that the smoke coming from someone's grilled fish had triggered the alarm. A crowd of people rushed downstairs. Soho stayed close to Jukian, protecting her. The two sat together at the bus station, but neither said a word. Before leaving, Jukian comforted Sua Ho, saying, "Tears fall as they are cleaning the windows of the soul. Sometimes, you don't need to pretend to be strong, just cry out loud." The school was preparing to hold a parent-teacher meeting, and Sua Ho didn't hope that his father would attend. To prevent his classmates from knowing that his father had once been a famous star, now a representative of an entertainment company, but his father was determined to go, and even made special arrangements to attend. On the way back home in Seoul, June recalled the cold words. He had heard Soho talking to Rukin at the locker room door, remembering how she had run out of the room, looking heartbroken. In his heart, he felt a twinge of emotion. After arriving home, Seol Jun sat down to compete for noodles with his little sister, Jae-eun. Seo Jun did not know that his sister was being bullied at school. After hearing that it was Rukin who had helped his sister, he couldn't help but chuckle softly. The next day, on her way to school, Jukian unexpectedly ran into Sua Ho. She shyly turned and ran in the opposite direction, only to run into Seol Jun, who blocked her path and wouldn't let her pass. He had intended to thank her but stumbled over his words, unsure how to start. Suddenly, the gang members appeared, teasing the two of them. Finally, Seo Jun managed to say one word. "I only heard what you said," but this wasn't truly an expression of his feelings. On the day of the parent-teacher meeting, Rukin's exam results were not good. Her mother sat in the homeroom teacher's office. Seeing Rukin's report card, she was so angry that she immediately took out a mini fan to cool off her rage. Unexpectedly, she carelessly blew away a part of teacher Jun Woo's bangs, revealing two sparse eyebrows that were hardly noticeable. The homeroom teacher quickly pulled down his bangs to cover his eyebrows, desperately trying to protect them. But Rukin's mother had seen everything. She took out a business card from a beauty salon and handed it to Jun Woo. Soho's father had also arrived at the school, and Rukin's mother froze upon seeing her former idol. She stared intently at him, unable to look away. She directly took out her daughter's report card to ask her idol for an autograph on the back. Classmates were in an uproar, surprised to learn that Soho's father was a once famous actor. After hearing that, Soho angrily left the cafeteria. Rukin felt a bit worried. She knew that Soho hated it when others found out that his father was an actor. Rukin also recalled that Soho had once told her he had no family. It seemed that the relationship between the two of them wasn't very good. Rukin ran to find Soho, who was confronting his father, asking why he had come to the school. At that moment, Rukin's mother suddenly shouted and ran over because of her idol. With a starstruck look, she begged him to take a photo with her. Rukin felt utterly embarrassed. Seo Jun also spotted Soho's father. The idol friend who had passed away was an artist under Soho's father's company. After the close friend scandal caused by fan interference led to public debate, the company's solution was to ignore it and not care. Perhaps this was the direct reason that led to his friend's downfall. At the funeral, Seo Jun had also asked Soho's father, but he still believed that the company's approach was very reasonable. From that point on, Seo Jun held a grudge in his heart. After Jukian's mother returned home, she said nothing and immediately confiscated Jukian's makeup. Because her daughter's academic performance was too poor to continue down the path of beauty, Jukian felt a sharp pain in her heart as she desperately pleaded to save her treasured belongings. Meanwhile, this time Seo Jun ranked second. Upon returning home, he received a stinging slap from his father. Seo Jun frantically washed his hands, visibly showing the immense pressure that children his age felt. In the practical class, Jukyeon and Sua Ho were assigned to sit together. After finishing, they worked together to clean up the lab equipment. However, neither of them said a word to each other. After school, Go-eun invited Rookin to eat as a thank you, but when she returned, she had a familiar expression on her face. If one were to hate their appearance just because of what others said, then it would mean that one is accepting the belief that they are ugly. So, she decided to disregard these things and live her own life authentically. This courage and honesty made Rookin feel deeply admired. Go-eun took Rookin to her house to teach her how to apply makeup. Seo Jun didn't see the two of them, so he took off his shirt and wore only striped shorts. He walked around the house very naturally, swaying his body, when he suddenly turned around and noticed there were two girls sitting in the living room. It was truly a situation that couldn't be salvaged. Seo Jun hurriedly dashed into the room to hide, like an embarrassed ostrich. After Rookin left, Seo Jun chased after her to walk her home and thanked her for helping his sister, Go-eun. Rookin never expected that one day she would hear a thank you come from Seo Jun. Rookin's mother noticed that her daughter hadn't come home until late night. She thought that Rookin was still at the art shop, so she went there to find her. Not finding Rookin, she instead saw her idol's son. Rookin's mother enthusiastically invited Soho to her home for a meal. When Rookin got home and opened the door, she saw Soho and froze. She signaled to him repeatedly to leave quickly. However, Soho pretended not to understand, and the attitudes of the family members towards him varied. Her father and younger brother, acting like protective figures, were worried that Rookin was falling in love too early. They kept emphasizing that Rookin needed to maintain a distance from Soho. But Rookin's mother was very friendly with Soho, feeding him with her own hands and even going so far as to, with Soho's help, to support Rookin in their studies. Her younger brother intentionally asked Soho why he had come all the way to their house. "Do you like Jukyeon?" her younger brother asked. Soho, without hesitation, straightforwardly admitted it. Her younger brother let out a derisive laugh, clearly not believing him. At the dining table, Rookin and her younger brother began their usual chaotic battle. Her younger brother grabbed Rookin's foot under the table and wouldn't let go. Rookin was pulled down and, by coincidence, fell into Soho's lap. Ms. Hikkyung worked for Soho's father's entertainment company, and when Rookin's mother brought this up, she started to praise Rookin's sister for a few moments. She then remarked that with such excellent and reliable employees at the company, it must be very reassuring. Just as she finished talking, Hikkyung came home in a drunken state, causing the atmosphere to suddenly become awkward. Hikkyung, having drunk too much, accidentally tripped over a power cord and made the entire house into darkness. After a flurry of chaos, Rookin finally managed to find her phone and turned on the flashlight. She saw her parents and younger brother sprawled in a corner, piled up like a stack of soldiers. Soho was trapped at the bottom of the pile. On the weekend, Hikkyung and Rookin went to the sauna. Rookin, with her bare face, unexpectedly ran into Seo Jun and his big-headed friend. Coincidentally, the three of them ended up in the same sauna room, leaving Jukyeon with no choice but to pretend to be asleep. Seo Jun and his friend started a contest to see who could stay in longer, which made Rookin feel like she was going to lose her mind from the heat. His big-headed friend even mentioned Rookin, saying she was very beautiful, but unfortunately, the one who got to enjoy her was not him. Mentioning that, he lay flat here. Rookin waited patiently until the two of them left before quickly sneaking out. On the bus, there was a passenger who had fallen asleep and didn't hear the ringtone of their phone ringing. The familiar ringtone reminded Soho of the last phone call his close friend had made to him. Memories flooded back, and Soho suddenly felt unwell, starting to have difficulty breathing. He quickly rushed off the bus. On her way home from the sauna, Jukyeon got off the bus to buy a hamburger, and inadvertently ran into Zemi at the convenience store. With her bare face, Rookin was quickly recognized. Zemi, who was known for bullying Rookin, deliberately pushed her, causing Rookin to fall. Rookin hurried outside and suddenly realized her wallet was still inside the convenience store, with her student ID still in it. Zemi picked up the wallet and was about to open it when, unexpectedly, Soho walked by and stopped her. It turned out that Soho had accidentally seen Rookin get off the bus to buy a hamburger from across the street, where she was being bullied by a group of pretty girls. Soho retrieved the wallet and then ran off to find Rookin. Rookin couldn't understand why Soho always rejected her, yet continued to help her in such a vague and ambiguous manner, making it difficult for others to let go. Soho gently comforted her with a few words. Feeling hurt, Jukyeon suddenly burst into tears. Oh! At that moment, Seo Jun and his big-headed friend also arrived. Soho immediately hugged Rookin and pulled her into a corner, using his leather jacket to shield her as she nestled in his arms. To be able to stay with Jukyeon a little longer, even though Seo Jun had already walked away, Soho still held on to Rookin as before. Seo Jun and his big-headed friend ran into their fierce rival, Lee Jin. Semi stood next to Lee Jin, looking very close to him. Seo Jun thought that Lee Jin resembled a real bully. so he wanted nothing to do with him whatsoever. Both sides became rivals, and Lee Jin's friends overheard that Seo Jun's girlfriend was named Lee Jukian. Meanwhile, Semi was still keeping an eye on her Instagram. It seemed that Seo Jun's girlfriend was indeed her. The homeroom teacher, Jun, was looking for a cosmetic hospital. Rookin's mother personally tattooed his eyebrows for him. Coincidentally, Hikyoung appeared, and, upon seeing the man getting his eyebrows tattooed, felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity. Looking closely, she realized, oh no, this was just too much of a coincidence. Jun hurriedly ran away in confusion, the heavy rain outside making the tattoo ink run everywhere. Hikyoung quickly grabbed an umbrella and chased after him. Just as he caught up with Jun, he was almost hit by a motorcycle. The two embraced under the same umbrella, creating a wonderfully warm atmosphere. Hikyoung suddenly felt mischievous. She leaned in and kissed Jun, then quickly ran away. The next day at school, Seo Jun scrolled through Rookin's Instagram. He discovered that she had also gone to the sauna yesterday. At that moment, Rookin was singing a nursery rhyme about underpants. He happily ran up to Sol Jun and mocked him. In that moment, Rookin looked exceptionally beautiful. Seo Jun stood frozen in place, speechless. Today, Soho took a day off, so he didn't go to school. Rookin's mind was wandering all day, unable to concentrate on studying. In fact, Soho was sick and lying at home. Rookin sent a message to check on him, just as his younger brother also sent a message. Rookin accidentally sent a funny sticker meant for his younger brother to Soho instead. It took her a moment to realize. Unfortunately, she couldn't retract it. Rookin was on his way to extra classes when he was stopped by Lee Jin. Seo Jun was taking his mother for a follow-up checkup, and her health was quite stable. The doctor told Seo Jun that his mother was being specially cared for by Professor Zhang. They had assembled all the best doctors to treat her illness. Ms. Zhang had also agreed to help thanks to a request from Seo Jun's friend. After Seo Jun went to see Professor Zhang, he realized that this was the first time he had come to see him since Soho's mother passed away. He was there to ask for his help in saving Seo Jun's mother. At that moment, Seo Jun's emotions were extremely complicated. He called Soho to ask why he was helping him from behind. Soho did this simply because they used to be good friends. If he were the one going through these things, Seo Jun would certainly do the same to help him. At that moment, Seo Jun received a call from Rookin. To his surprise, the voice on the other end of the line was Lee Jin. Rookin had been taken to the technician by the thugs. Seo Jun immediately sensed that something was wrong. Rookin seized the opportunity when no one was watching to stealthily retrieve his phone. She quickly video-called her close friends. Seeing the scene in the technician's room, they realized Rookin was in danger. Both sides rushed to the technician's room, with Soho being the first to burst in. Inside the room, Lee Jin had his arms around Rookin's shoulders. Soho immediately rushed in and aggressively confronted the thugs. Seo Jun quickly joined the fight as well. Before long, Rookin's close friends also arrived on the scene. With just one kick, Seo Jun sent his opponent sprawling to the ground. The chaotic fight officially began, with everyone battling to protect Rookin. The technician's room turned into a chaotic mess. Rookin was successfully rescued, thanks to the blessings of Rookin's mother and the teacher. Junwoo finally has eyebrows. He switched to a new hairstyle, sweeping his bangs to the sides. The students eagerly praised him for looking handsome. Junwoo was still lingering on the kiss from that day. He silently blamed Rookin for not reaching out to him yet. The school had learned about the fight that caused the commotion that day. The teachers were also unclear about the details of the incident. The first thing to do was to call Seo Jun's group of followers. They were scolded for only knowing how to go out and cause trouble. Rookin's group came to the office to confess, surprising the teacher that two seemingly weak students, Soho and Sujin, were also involved. How could such well-behaved students get into a fight? At that moment, Hikyoung sent a bouquet of flowers to Junwoo's office. Just as the delivery person was about to reveal Rookin's sister's name, Junwoo quickly interrupted to stop them. He couldn't let the entire school know that he was in a relationship with a student's family member. After dealing with the students, Junwoo called Hikyoung. She was always very open and straightforward. She had never felt that a girl giving flowers to a boy was normal. She told Junwoo that the language of the flowers she gifted conveyed, "I will always strive for you." Rookin's group was punished with writing reports due to the fight. As soon as he finished writing, Seo Jun called Soho into the restroom. Even though their relationship wasn't very good, but after some back and forth, Seo Jun still thanked Soho for helping with his mother's situation. However, he hoped that Soho would stay out of his affairs in the future. As Seo Jun left the restroom, he saw Rookin approaching from the opposite direction. The situation now was that they developed feelings for Rookin and were secretly watching her together. That day, after everyone came together to rescue Rookin from the thugs, Soho took her home, and on the way, Rookin clutched her backpack tightly, still feeling scared. Noticing her actions, Soho held her hand tightly as a gesture of comfort. Today, Soho invited Rookin to the study room to help her improve her academic performance. Rookin always remembered his words, smiling brightly with her eyes hidden. What did this saying mean? Does it mean that Soho wants to be with her? After arriving at the study room, Soho fell asleep at the desk, and Rookin focused on his peacefully sleeping face. How could he look so handsome even while sleeping? It truly made one feel a flutter of emotions. Suddenly, Soho opened his eyes, startling Rookin, who began to stutter as if caught off guard. They laid slumped over the table, their eyes meeting in a moment that felt incredibly romantic. This part ends here. Thank you all for your support during this time. Chuk on chi em ko that new suc ko da ung ho ti min na. Hen on chi em o kak fan teep theo. Xin chao va hen gap lai.